Hello, good morning. So I told you in the last video that I think that Ahamad's statement about his politics, about him wanting to run after Barrow is significant and that it's triggered by something. I just couldn't put a finger on all the things that might have triggered it. And so I was there, somebody sent me sort of an AI generated sort of something like a flyer where a number of pictures are presented on a number of pictures of Babu Sise, the member of parliament for Sabah Sanjal, I think it's his cousin Maud Sise, who was the current minister of trade, and Usman Ba, I think is also a native of Sabah Sanjal, and another individual, another guy, another Usman Ba, I think, were lined up on a t-shirt, sort of showing people of Sabah Sanjal for the president. Okay, now, you know, I mean, people who, I personally know Ahamad. I mean, well, we don't get along well, but I know him. And I know also that he considers himself very, he considers Sabah Sanjal his area, his stronghold. And, you know, that sort of a flyer coming out of NPP itself also adds to the tension. It shows that there is something, not just the statement that's made by Ahamad. It shows that there is something, that Ahamad could tolerate Barrow, but he cannot tolerate any other person other than Barrow. And that's one. So it's more like, at this point, I think Ahamad's relationship with Barrow is more like, you know the reason why they call possessing a nuclear arm, a nuclear weapon, a deterrence. Because once you've got it, nobody with a nuclear weapon has ever fired at another person with a nuclear weapon. If you fire at me, it's detected. We fire our own too. You die, I die. So it's a deterrent, you know. It's the same thing as they say in English. The threat of a slap is much more effective than the slap itself. Because once you slap me, there's no point. We go to war. So I think Barrow and Ahamad are both, to some extent, can destroy each other. They both have enough armory to destroy each other. And I don't think also it's also in both of their interests to do it. And so here's the thing. Now Ahamad is in a much weaker position. Why? Because already there are state investigations that Ahamad is purportedly implicated, of wrongdoing that Ahamad is purportedly implicated. One of these is the investigation into the construction of the ecologies. And you would remember there was a bunch of petition from staff of Gambia Tourism Board against the conduct of many officials, including Ahamad himself. And this was investigated by the Petition Committee of the National Assembly. And this investigation is currently being implemented. The recommendations of this is currently being implemented. And who is the minister overseeing that implementation? Is Mr. Job, Blai Job. Who is Blai Job? Is the guy who is at the heart of the Russian oil scandal, which investigation of which was led by members of parliament belonging to NRP, who were at least thought to have been to have done so on either the support or the endorsement of Ahamad. So you could say, if Abdullah has his way, he's going to implement those recommendations with extreme prejudice, if you like. That aside, there are other issues as well. Ahamad is a state minister. The president is in charge of all the institutions of state, including audit offices, National Intelligence Agency, police, and everything. So if he wants to get any public officer compromised, he will. And so Ahamad doesn't have the capacity to defend himself against Barrow. But he also has the power to create enough bleeding for Barrow that only him could cauterize the wound. Okay? How? Because one of the things that Barrow faces, allegations that Barrow faces following his fallout with UDP, is that he's an incredibly unreliable politician who betrays or doesn't keep his words. And of course, yes, Barrow has a history of not keeping his words. He wanted to stay at 3 years. He doesn't stay. He didn't stay at 3 years. He went for 5 years. He went for 5 years. Now he went for 10 years. Now he's going for 15 years. Okay? He's somebody who hasn't kept his words. I mean, this is not, doesn't have to be said by UDP for it to be fact. It's already a historical fact. If Ahamad also comes out to add on to the fact that, well, Macky Sall and I and Barrow actually sat, whether or not this is true, but Ahamad comes out to say it, that we sat and he agreed that I am going to support him for 10 years, and after 10 years he's going to back me for another 10, and he's going to appoint me a vice president, and after the elections, so that I will be properly positioned after the elections, I contest for presidency with his support. If Ahamad comes out to say that, but that will add on another layer of betrayal. Perception that it's bad PR, it's not good for politics. Secondly, Ahamad has run a lot of errands for the president, and he's in the inner core of the operations of the NPP, so he knows everything that went wrong, everything that went well, all the Morobos issues. I remember Ahamad is the guy who visited the Murids for the president ahead of the presidential election. No, it's not just about Morobos, but a lot of other things Ahamad did. Nobody could afford Ahamad to be talking about those things. And when people are at a point when they have nothing to lose, which is where Ahamad is going to be if there is an onslaught on him from the heart of the NPP, because at this point, Ahamad will not be able to win presidency if he is kicked out of the alliance. And in which case, if he makes Barrow more vulnerable, Ahamad knows it's either the so-called new movements that are going to win, or it's going to be the UDP. And in any case, if those two parties also win, Ahamad is likely not going to be president for eternity. So Ahamad, a desperate Ahamad, will have nothing to lose. Okay? And so he will do what he can to stay alive and to keep his hopes alive. And so that means he's going to also throw at them whatever he has. That's, again, not good for politics in an election year. And so I think that both of them are going to be very cautious the way they deal with this subject matter. I don't know where it's going to lead, but it's not just NPP that stands that is likely going to implode before the presidential elections. It seems to be the case that a lot of the political parties and alliances are going to have issues ahead of the presidential elections. Politics is about management of relationships, and that's not a very easy thing to do ahead of the presidential elections. And so, considering all these issues, I think that going into the presidential elections, it's a very volatile period for all the political parties, even though, if you ask me, I think the NPP stands a much better chance. But they also do have huge vulnerability, huge, you cannot emphasize it. That can be exploited, and that can make them lose the elections. Thank you.